Hi, my name is Justin Call. I'm the president of Broomstick Monkey Games, and you're about to view a tutorial that explains character cards and specifically the archetypes that are associated with each character card. There are 8 archetypes in Imperial Harvest, and I'm going to show you the pieces briefly here. We have the Warrior, which allows you to do attacks, typically adjacent attacks. We have the Rogue, which moves diagonally. There's the Boot. We've got the Creature archetype, which typically allows them to interact with neutral monsters like the Hydra in a unique way. And oftentimes they also have an ability that penetrates hedges. So they're kind of a unique character class in that respect. They're two-dimensional. The Guardian archetype provides defense themselves and or other members of your team. The Mage has line of sight abilities. So that arrow becomes very important because those line of sight abilities will take effect based on where they're pointing. They can be reoriented once per turn. The Royalty archetype, that's an archetype that gains victory points in a tertiary way. Typically, you can only gain victory points by picking up strawberries and dropping off strawberries. Well, the Royalty archetypes, printed on their cards, there's a specific way for them to gain victory points that is outside of those two things, which can be profitable and dangerous. Ethereal characters right here, those are the ones that can go over or through hedges, and here are the utility characters, and these are multifaceted as well. Utility characters, typically they're going to be able to interact with items, objects, and characters in unique ways, either by moving those characters, like the monk can throw people over hedges, or by dropping items on the board. So that's a good place to start. I've already explained the archetypes, but let's go over them briefly. So we've got the utility archetype. We have 3 utility archetypes that come in the game. The monk, who can throw people over hedges and plant hedges as well. We've got the hound, who can pick up strawberries and force people to move if he bites them. He gets extra movement when he picks up strawberries. The engineer drops traps, and he can move those traps on the board using his improbable objects ability. So that's our utility character, one example of them. The royalty archetypes, we've got our merchant and our regent. The regent starts with victory points, but if characters die, he loses victory points. The merchant, if he gives items to other characters, he gains victory points. Thematic. We have 4 warriors thus far in Imperial Harvest. We have our Minotaur, who can charge people and attack them. We have our barbarian, who can chop down hedges and also throw his axe across the water, hit people with it. We've got a skin changer who immediately automatically attacks anyone who's in the same space as him, which can be dangerous even for members of your own team. And we've got the bridge troll, one of our promo cards you could get at Gen Con, which we've run out of since, who basically lurks around bridges and is able to attack people when they're near bridges. Let's see. So there's the warrior, there's the utility, ethereal. Let's do ethereal next. So our ethereal characters. We have 2 thus far. We have the promo card that we gave to everybody that bought our Kickstarter game. Broomstick Monkey, who can fly over hedges and pick up lots of strawberries. We have a Dryad, who can go through the hedges. This is an interesting one. She doesn't just walk through the hedges, but she can actually travel through an adjacent hedge to any space along the entire length of that hedge, which is very unique. So we try to not just duplicate powers, as you'll notice with these characters. Like the rogues can move diagonally, but we try to make rogues that move diagonally in unique ways. For example, let's actually look at the rogues next. Here, both of them just say may move diagonally, but we have other characters that we've been working on that move diagonally in very interesting scenarios. So it's not just straight up agility, it's something else. Now, I don't want to spoil any of those character cards we've designed, but they're a lot of fun. And these boost, typically, well, that's one other thing the rogues can do. They will buff or debuff characters on your team. So in this case, they're going to give you extra action points or take away action points from enemy characters that are nearby. The puppeteer is able to move people and force them to use their powers, which can be good for your team or bad for the other team, depending on the scenario. So rogues buff, debuff, in addition to moving diagonally. That's one of the things we try to do. Archetypes. Mages, line of sight abilities here. We've already mentioned what the sorceress can do in one of our other videos. She can move people if she can see them. The nymph can use your powers if she's standing adjacent to you, and also turn off your powers so they no longer work if she's standing adjacent to you. If you're playing on the basic side, though, she doesn't get that ability, so she can just pull you with her alluring gaze. That's her line of sight ability. And then she can duplicate your powers once you've been pulled close enough to her. We're almost down at the bottom of the stack. We've got two archetypes left. The Guardians. This guy can protect people that are within, let's see, advanced side. Guardian. Allied characters up to 2 space away or protect from attack. He also has his tower shield, which blocks line of sight effects. Good for blocking mages, and he's got a spear. Typically, our Guardians on their basic side, they're not going to have any kind of offensive attack. This one does, attack an adjacent character. The Ranger, though, does not. She can protect people if they're in her line of sight, and she's protected if she's next to hedges. On the flip side, then she can actually start shooting people with her bow, although it's a bit costly. And finally, our creatures, we've got our Basilisk and our Wyvern. The ways these two characters interact with the neutral monsters, the Wyvern can move the Hydra for 2 action points rather than canceling its whole turn. And the Basilisk can, if another character is defeated by an adjacent attacker, the attacker is also killed. That also happens if the Hydra attacks the Basilisk. The Basilisk is the only character that can really remove a Hydra from a board, and that's by dying. So probably a longer explanation than was necessary, but again, there are 8 archetypes, and when you draft your team, you can only pick 3. So whichever 3 you pick, that's going to immediately limit the number of cards you can pick. You might be able to pick from 2 utility, 2 rogue, and 4 warriors, but all of these other characters are no longer accessible to you because you've picked your 3 archetypes. If you are playing, you couldn't have more than one of one archetype. And if you're playing a 4-player game, that is one scenario where you could, because then you have your own tokens and they have their own tokens. And in order to distinguish which characters are which, you would flip your token over and you'll see there's a black arrow here and a white arrow here. So if you're playing a 4-player game, you'll use the archetype character tokens if you happen to draft the same tokens. Same archetype, same characters. Maybe I've got a monk, and this is his utility symbol, and maybe you've got a hound or an engineer, or maybe you have another monk. Doesn't matter. You'll use the other side of the token, and that'll help us distinguish which characters are on the board. That's it.